right about one thing. This ends now.
I'll kick off by saying I'm not alone on saying this, but I thought this is the best one yet. I think this
Hell
movie just
yeah.
totally works. And what's it like for you guys to see this reaction coming in? Because part three is kind of notoriously difficult, and it seems like this one is getting a lot of best one yet reactions.
Oh,
We
is there a part 3 curse? We hadn't heard about that.
we definitely joked about that a lot in the story process. No, I mean it in a way it's kind of crazy that fans have been feeling that way. I wouldn't say unanimously, but it does feel like it's kind of the general consensus among the movie fans is that they keep getting bigger and better, which is what we all are trying to do, but doesn't always work.
Yeah, the degree of difficulty on this one was definitely it felt a little higher, but like the whole team came together and like it's really heartening to get this reaction, to get positive reviews, for the fans to be excited. We're tracking for a big weekend, so hopefully those predictions are borne out. It feels very good.
I know this is going to be posting after that weekend, but I see the future and I'm predicting good things too. Did you guys feel, because as you know, you joked the part three curse, but did you kind of feel, wait, this is clicking together, this is working prior to the general public and critics starting to see it?
I mean, we at least felt that it was managing to bring something new. That's always the trick. You try to give the audience basically what they want because they already like the franchise. You don't want to make it radically different, but how do you
not exactly what they're asking for, because you also want to surprise them.
Yeah, the fact that this got to be like darker and more emotional, and the fact that there ended up being so much more for like Robotnik and Jim Carrey to do. I think that was kind of the more unexpected thing going into it, is when the idea of, because that's not from the games, of bringing Gerald into the present, and then obviously the idea of Jim playing both characters and kind of seeing our lovable villain reduced to this sort of like little kid phase of just wanting his evil grandfather's love.
And all of that stemmed really from what Jim had done in Sonic 1 and 2 as well. Like he's like this evil megalomaniac, but he always sort of was projecting this kind of broken little boy inside, his little speech about being an orphan in part 1, just like it felt like there was a lot of vulnerability in there that we hadn't tapped into yet. And this was a great opportunity to really explore it, and which we knew would be funny, but also a way to get to some real emotional stuff with him that probably no one was ever expecting to get.
No. I mean, I know I wasn't, but that's what's so great about it. But is that, interesting sort of a balance? Because, yeah, this is a bit heavier movie. It is more emotional. You still want it to be a fun, goofy Sonic adventure. So how much discussion was there about like, okay, how do we do this so it doesn't completely get imbalanced? And you're still making sure it is adventure, but that the emotional beats really hit when they come in.
If anything, I would say was more of a concern of like how do we make sure the movie's not too fun and silly to kind of undermine the seriousness of Shadow's storyline. And then, I mean, watching the movie, I'm kind of amazed at how like dark and emotional it really wound up being. Because while you're writing it, you're like hoping that stuff gets in there, but you never know.
But all these movies have always been, we've always been kind of going for like big emotions with our various characters, like taking these colorful characters. I mean, Knuckles, and, just like thinking about what they've gone through and the loneliness and the sort of emotional trauma. The fact that Sonic's been an orphan from the very beginning has really created space for that emotional stuff. But then we always sprinkle silliness all over the top of it as well to make it palatable for the kids and fun for everybody. So the combination of melodrama and comedy has always been like a key part of the formula. I don't want to make the movies formulaic, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, the recipe.
So
So here's where I reveal something. I have never played a Sonic game in my life. Obviously, I live in this world. I know who Sonic is. I know he's been in the Olympics against Mario. But how do another balancing act question, but obviously, you have a very hardcore fan base of the game fans. But then you've got people like me, and who are going to be learning a lot about Sonic from you guys. So is that sort of this tricky thing of making sure, like, okay, we want to make sure the fans are getting what they want. We also want to make sure people who don't know all this stuff or maybe vaguely remember it can get this information concisely in the context of these movies.
Absolutely. I mean, we've always wanted to play with the general audience because if it doesn't play with the general audience, we're not going to make enough money. But we also want to play to the fans and for the fans to feel rewarded for their knowledge. So it's not even so much a balance. It's like you want to give both audiences all of what they want, which is tricky. But that's why we work so hard at it. The whole team, not just Josh and me. I mean, John Whittington, Jeff Fowler, Toby Asher, the whole story team, Tyson Hess. It's like it is a real team effort to try and deliver on all those levels.
When the trailer for this came out, I had this funny experience of it coming out, and then I saw some people tweet stuff like, "Oh my God, they're gonna kill that little girl," and I'm like, and I understand they're not like excited for like killing a kid, but they're gonna do right by the source material. Is that sort of like to see, because yeah, the game fans can be very intense, that they're like, okay, they are happy with that we are giving them what they want. Well, not like you said, like with Robotnik's grandfather, it's not 1-to-1, but that you can do some change ups, but also make it work for the people who want that stuff in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we wanted to deliver the emotional experience, even if the plot details don't totally match up, but we wanted to have the impact that playing that game had. And just Shadow's backstory has been such an important part of who he is in both Sonic Adventure 2 and the Shadow the Hedgehog solo game. In the way he's been presented in really all media, it's kind of all about his tragic backstory, almost the way that, it's like Batman wouldn't be Batman if his parents hadn't been killed in Crime Alley,
Yeah.
So we had to honor that even while remixing the details a little bit to make it fit into a movie and allow for us to bring Gerald into the present so we can have all that fun of the two Robotniks.
And in a weird way, I almost feel like bringing him into the present, because Shadow's like a new character. There's only so much time we're ever going to be able to devote to telling just his story in a movie where we also have our Sonic and our other heroes and Tom and Maddie and Robotnik. So I think bringing him in the present and allowing part of his story to be part of Ivo's story really just helped reinforce the elements that fans would want from all of that from the games, I think.
Yeah, well, without making a movie where like half the runtime is flashbacks, which is a recipe for like a dynamic experience.
You mentioned John. How does that work? Because obviously he's been a writer on the last two films. So how does that work sort of process-wise with his writing versus yours?
I mean, the truth is, on these big movies, there's like a ton of people who end up coming in. Many, don't get credit because they maybe just did like a punch up for a day. Whittington also worked on the first movie. It's just kind of this part of the process that the producers and the studio feel is working. Even like their punch up rooms, I've noticed, are always kind of the same handful of people they bring in each time.
But the way the process works really is that when the movie starts, it's like we work up the story in close consultation with Jeff Fowler and Toby Asher and write a draft or two and really get the movie into shape. And often, like, Jeff will assign storyboard artists and they even start boarding sequences even before we're completely finished with our first draft.
Tyson.
And at a certain point, we hand it off to John while we go work on Violent Night or whatever.
Right.
And continues the process as things continue to get refined.
We feel like Tyson Hess is kind of the secret. I mean, I think hardcore fans know who Tyson Hess is, but maybe general just movie fans don't. Was the guy they brought in on part one after the Ugly Sonic debacle, and he has a co-producer credit mostly because there's not really a name for what he does, but he's kind of like, I don't want to say brand ambassador because that's not what he is, but he's like the hardcore Sonic enthusiast and a key part of kind of maintaining what the fans will really want throughout the process.
I mean, he's a storyboard artist as well. There's a lot of
Yeah,
board artists on these movies because these movies are like much more heavily storyboarded than most live action films would be, or even other hybrid films. I think it's interesting the process, but Jeff really likes to really board everything and then shoot the board. So it's like scenes continue to change with input from board artists, from Jeff, from the cast, from John, all the way through the process. But it is funny because then when we end up watching the movie, we're like, yeah, this is still basically our script, but with lots and lots of like little tweaks all throughout, because it is, film is the ultimate collaborative art form.
Yes, yes. Jim Carrey for years now has kind of been dabbling with retirement. So I feel like it really says something that his only credits the past few years are Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and 3, and the only comedies he's done in like a decade. Is that kind of a point of pride for you guys that it's like,
it
oh,
is.
we're doing something right?
Like, it's very unexpected, knowing his, not like he's never done any sequels, but his general aversion to doing sequels, and for him to only be making Sonic sequels at the moment, as you said, yeah, it is rewarding. And I think we all knew going into writing 3 that we needed to give him something that would really make him feel it was worth his time. And the other thing we keep noting is a credit to him is that usually when you're wooing an actor back for a long running franchise, it's like you have to keep giving them less to do. And I think Jim just likes the challenge. I think it was the idea of like, oh, I get to play 2 characters and do 2 different kind of emotional arcs, is what got him excited.
Yeah, we just keep piling more and more on his plates. But the fact that he is mostly retired and hates to repeat himself, it does sort of like put the pressure on us to continue to give him something new and exciting to do, to like lure him back from retirement each time. So we were so happy that he did come back, and he really delivered. And I think he's fantastic. I've started a one-man campaign to get him nominated for a best supporting actor. So spread the news. Nominate
Yes.
Jim Carrey. Let's do it.
Absolutely. No, he's fantastic in it. You have this insane cast. I was looking at a picture, I think it was the UK premiere, and you see Idris Elba, Jim Carrey, Keanu Reeves, James Marsden, all these people next to each other. A, is that just kind of wild, but B, also, as the series goes on and now you're writing knowing these actors, like, is that kind of exciting because you're like, well, I can't wait to hear Idris say this line,
I mean,
when you're
for
doing
sure, as relates to Idris, obviously when we were writing Shadow, I mean, the internet has wanted Keanu to play Shadow for years, so I think that was always at least the idea to try and get him. You never know what he was going to say.
Yeah, we were writing it to Keanu without knowing for sure at the time whether or not it would really be him, but we were like, that's who we were writing it for. So it was very, very pleased when we learned that he'd agreed to do it. I mean, we had a feeling he might, since we needed his permission to use that footage of him in Speed and Sonic 1, and he gave it. So we were like, we've already got him a little bit, We know he's open to the Sonic franchise, at least enough to allow us to use that clip.
Right.
Yeah, we love writing Knuckles, so having Idris's voice in our head makes it all the more fun, knowing like what is really going to work.
Let me get into the spoiler zone for post-release, because I have to ask, what a great emotional way that Robotnik maybe is gone forever. What should we think? Should we think that's a swan song for this character? And how much did you talk to Jim about the way that was going to happen? Because it really it worked for me,
I mean, we didn't talk to Jim about it personally. I don't even remember. I feel like that was just always the idea, and I'm sure Jim liked knowing that he had the option to come back or not, but that if he didn't, you know, it actually him just falling off the robot at the end of part two wouldn't have been super satisfying if that was the
Right.
end of the character.
I mean, we like had been looking for an opportunity to do a little Robotnik Sonic team up just to get them a little more screen time together. So we were really excited to do that in this movie a little bit. I mean, you're always trying to kind of get your stars screen time together, like putting, you know, De Niro and Pacino at that table in Heat, even though it doesn't really make a lot of sense in the plot that they would meet up and talk like that. But you wanted to have the scenes, you make it happen. But we also thought, knowing that it was possible that this might be Jim's last movie as Robotnik, since he keeps threatening to retire, wanted to give him a satisfying send off. And we thought it was great that we actually felt like we came up with an arc here with him and his grandfather and with Stone, where Robotnik can do an about face and become a good guy, even if only briefly, and provide a satisfying ending to the character if he in fact is dead, which he definitely is, unless Jim wants to come back, in which case he might have survived somehow.
Yeah.
Understand. And then the post-credit scenes, well, it's interesting because I guess a two-part question here, which is you know, there's obviously possibility for more. I just saw Ben Schwartz, I think it was on Colbert, say he wants to do 10 to 15 Sonics. But as we mentioned, this is a part 3 and there is something about a trilogy. So was that interesting as far as like wanting this to feel, I mean, the Robotnik storyline especially does give you a feeling of a conclusion, while also being like, there's probably going to be a Sonic 4 and sort of doing both things. Did you to have that discussion?
Well,
Yeah.
a little bit. And also the idea that, you know, in kind of a subtle way, but it's like Sonic has been growing up a little bit in each movie. And if you're kind of tracking that, you know, you can just kind of feel that a part 4, he's going to keep growing and just kind of like, you know, his relationship with Tom and Maddie kind of keeps changing a little bit each time, like as one does with their own, you know, Tom was his friend in the first one and then kind of realizing he was his dad by part 2. Not entirely sure where I'm going with this, but
I mean, that Sonic continues to grow up. You know, it's like he's a
Yeah.
kid becoming a teen, becoming a man. At some point, he was going to have to deal with girls. But definitely, like, the idea was to make this a great trilogy. But then, like, of course, we're not going to like close the door. I mean, if we or Jeff or Toby, if any of us were like 3 only, then I think the studio would probably fire us into the sun.
Acting like I didn't look up these names after I saw the movie, but Amy Rose and Metal Sonic. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Sonic may be getting some interesting girls. Yeah. How much can you say about, just have you had specific discussions about what a Sonic 4 will be? Or is it more like, hey, we've thrown these characters out there and we'll figure it out if asked to do so?
We can't talk about 4 other than we have thought a lot about Amy Rose.
Yeah, and we know Toby has big schemes for the ongoing franchise.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was big cheers at the press screening at the AMC Century City the other night.
Yeah.
That's what we were going for.
You definitely succeeded in that. I have to ask you guys before we go about Violent Night, because Mr. Harbor's been talking about a sequel to that. Are you guys involved in that? Anything you can say on that?
We are.
We're still in the script phase.
But yeah, like we're yeah, I wish we had a date to give you, but we don't. It's a little bit difficult scheduling everybody together, but we're trying to make it happen as quickly as possible. But Harbor has a bit of a conflict with a certain other mega franchise. Tommy's
Several
got
other mega franchises.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll all come together. Everybody will be back, and it'll be an even bigger adventure for Santa with even more Christmas spirit this time.
Well, here's how I know you guys made it with that movie. When they had your version of Santa at Halloween Horror Nights last year, did you get to see that? Because that was amazing.
Yeah, we got a picture. Wait, the one where you like get off the tram
Yeah.
and take photos. Oh yeah. We all we and the director and our producer went to get pictures with our Santa.
And to just go through all the mazes.
We keep saying that they need to do, because they just did. I don't know if they did it this year. Last year, they modified the Waterworld stunt show to do with the Purge
Yeah.
show, where like they need to do a Christmas time
Oh,
Violent Night
a Violent Night
show.
stunt show, live stunt show. That's what we want.
I fully endorse that. Only because you mentioned Ugly Sonic. I had a Yorma Tacone is in Sonic 3, and that made me think, oh, he's also in Chippendale Rescue Rangers as the voice of Batman. What did you think of the legacy of that in Rescue Rangers?
It's been funny, and now Paramount just embraced it themselves with that Ugly Sonic Christmas sweater. I don't know who thought of that, but that was pretty inspired.
Yes.
I mean, it's just been weird that it's so well known enough that you can make fun of it. Part of me always wonders if that, people would kind of forget that ever happened. So,
But yeah, somehow that's like really etched itself into film history as the most famous redesign of all time, and it ended up working out miraculously well.
The fact that it ended up working well, I feel like, to us, I don't know how everyone on the production feels about it, won't speak for them. We just think it's funny, and it kind of feels like this interesting part of film history that people are still joking about it. That means they're still thinking about it.
It was a real test of the axiom that there's no such thing as bad press.
But also, I do think it's a testament to how successful this has all been. The Paramount's like, yeah, we can embrace this.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, great talking to you today, and congratulations.
You too. Good seeing you again.